Welcome to CMMS Radio, a podcast and general resource for all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, from selection to implementation to help you make better choices and have a successful CMMS journey. We'll bring in experts along the way to help us learn more about CMMS, facilities operations, and much more. If you need help with the CMMS project, send a message at CMMSradio.com using the What's on Your Mind link. Suggest a topic, share your CMMS story, or ask questions. This episode is sponsored by Upkeep, purpose-built for maintenance, reliability, and operations teams. Our mobile-first CMMS and asset operations management solution puts work orders, inventory, and asset info in the palm of your hand. Designed for ease of use and adoption, Upkeep aligns your team for peak business performance. Transform your operations. Transform your success with the multi-platform solution of Upkeep. Visit upkeep.com/CMMSradio to receive a dedicated custom discovery session. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Today, we're going to meet the man behind car number 98, Bring Back the Trades, and D&M Electrical Contracting Incorporated. He's the CEO of D&M Electrical Contracting, a full-service union electrical contracting firm serving the lower Hudson Valley and greater New York metropolitan area. He's also a race car driver. That's cool stuff. But there's a hell of a lot more to the story. Doug Winston, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Thank you very much, Greg.
So before we jump into, some of the other questions I've got written down, I really want to start off with there was a comment that you put out on LinkedIn to somebody's post, and it was around the Detroit electrical road charging system. And what you were doing was calling out how it's kind of ridiculous considering that there's still a really steep barrier to entry for people in that area to have all these electrical cars and all those things. So could you talk a little bit more about that and kind of where you were coming from?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, to talk about the money that's being invested in this, it's purely conceptual because there is no commercially produced vehicle right now that can charge inductively while it's driving down the road. So first of all, it's a complete fallacy because you're like, oh yeah, we're going to look into this and explore this and we're going to put all this money towards doing it, but there's no commercial technology available to utilize it. So that's first and foremost, okay? So today, the only way to charge an EV is plug it in. There's no inductive charging methods out there. If it is, there's no commercially available. Maybe there's people working on prototypes. But at the end of the day, this is all just money that's probably, look, I have no intimate knowledge of this, but it sounds like to me somebody said this would be a great idea. Let's give somebody money to study it. And there's going to be some consultants that are going to get paid some money. And again, I don't know what you're doing. It's not money to construct anything. This is most likely just, an R&D exercise that somebody's throwing money at.
Yeah, and I think, is it fair to say, just in your view and experience, that this is actually a hell of a lot more common than people realize? Lots of initiatives that are actually, they don't have a true end in mind. They have a perceived end in mind, and it's about that money grab?
I don't want to generalize because I can't speak intimately about the specifics of it. But I can just tell you that what I know, being in the industry and being involved, and just from a technical standpoint, look, is it the norm to throw money at things? Yeah, they're like, ooh, it's a just cause and we're going to pump money into this. Yeah, it's all BS. So, as far as I'm concerned, there's tons of that out there. And, again, I don't want to speculate, but there's a lot of cronyism that goes on in politics, right? So sure. We'll leave it at that. Like I said, I have no intimate knowledge. I'm not calling anybody out. But by the same token, when you send grant money to evaluate something that doesn't exist, okay, just makes me raise an eyebrow.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting. That's why I like talking about it, just to get people thinking, because I think at the end of the day, that's what we need to do a hell of a lot more of than what we've seen in the last 10, 20 years. Critical thinking has just gone out the window, and it's a pretty damn scary proposition. So now I want to switch it a little bit to your background and kind of what brought you to where you are. And I know that's a hell of a lot to unpack, but maybe just a bit of a general background I'd love to hear in that background kind of what got you into cars. I want to ask about I think it's a '68 Cougar story
Yeah,
and
there is.
some other stuff like that. But
Yep.
how do you?
Yeah. So I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. So,
All right.
I was a car guy as a kid to the extent that I built a lot of model cars, but never wrenched on a real car. But definitely was into cars. I had lots of models I built. And the closest I came to a car was I used to put stereos in with my father because he worked his night job, worked two jobs. His night job was working in a consumer electronics store, and people would say, "Could you put a stereo in for me?" So he could do it, and I would help him. That interested me, so I enjoyed doing that, and I was good at it. So probably around the time I'm 16 years old, my friends are getting into probably 15, 16. My friends are getting into cars, and oh, you can put a stereo in for me. Like, yeah, all right. So a buddy of mine was building this '68 Cougar, and he says, all right, you're gonna come over and put the stereo in, and then, oh well, if you can do that, you can do other wiring for me. So I'm watching them build an engine, and I'm like, what are you doing over there? And I'm like, this is pretty cool. All right, I want to help with this though. After the stereo was done, I kept coming around every day, and we'd be hanging out. And all right, what's that? That's a piston. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's cool. How's that go in? And yeah, and then look. The next thing is, why do we build engines? So cars go faster. What do we do when they go faster? Well, we race people, right? So that was pretty much limited to street racing, and then evolved into drag racing at the local drag strip in Jersey. So we kind of did it legitimate at some point. And I had a real race car that was a drag car, but that was the extent of my racing. So, but that parlayed into my career because before I could graduate high school, I went to Catholic school and had to visit the nun before I could go. She was a guidance counselor, and she picked up my file and she said, "All right, so what are you going to school for here?" And she looks at my file and goes, "You're going to Westchester Community College for Electrical Engineering Technology." What kind of bullshit course is that? I said, "Excuse me, sister?" She says, "Come on, what gives? Why aren't you taking engineering?" I said, "I don't want to be an engineer." "Why not?" "I hate math. Don't want to sit behind a desk. Not me. Sorry." So she tried to convince me to be an engineer. You can be a field engineer. You can be this. I'm like, nah, don't want to be an engineer. Sorry. No, doesn't interest me. But she said, finally, probably be a good electrician. So what do you mean? She says, well, you just told me you like to work, with your hands. You put stereos in your friends' cars. Don't you have any relatives that are electricians? Yeah, my cousin's an electrician. Good. Go home and ask him if you could work for him for the summer. So I did, and long story short, I met up with him, and a couple hours later, I had my whole, you know, early part of my life laid out. Okay, I'm gonna work as an electrician, get my contractor's license by the time I'm 25, build a house by the time I'm 30. Okay, good. I got my whole life planned. And I pretty much executed on that plan. So, fast forward, you're 30 years old, you just built your house. I'm 31, probably 31 when I built my house. I already bought a building that I owned. So it was kind of like lost. What do I do next? And pretty much got to the point where I said, well, I guess whatever I want. So I spent most of my 30s working hard, building a business, working on my house, raising my daughter, trying to be a good family man, stay home, not do too much. And then well, that gets into the next part of the story, so I'll stop off there. But yeah, that's what got me into the electrical field. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So, and it's all really interesting because everybody's story is a little bit different, but it's got all the different cool elements, and we want to know, what were the influences and all that kind of stuff. So, when it comes to the value and the advantage to niche markets,
Mm,
especially in what you do,
yeah,
I would just love to kind of
yeah,
hear your insight on that
yep,
for our listeners.
yeah, yeah. So I've always been the kind of guy that gets bored pretty easy, and my first couple of years in the industry, I learned, we wired houses. That was what my cousin did. And then once in a while we do commercial work. Commercial work more intrigued me, commercial industrial stuff. So more of that. I kind of craved that. And, after about 5 years, 5 or 6 years, I worked for him and I left. I went to go work for another company that did mostly all industrial stuff. And that was really more up my alley. I enjoyed that. And I learned to do certain little things. And then when we first went in business, one of the things that we did, we had two really great markets. Number one, we did explosion proof wiring, which, again, niche market. Not a lot of people did that, but I had done a couple of projects and we had a good customer that had a propane facility and we used to do a lot of work for them. So we learned how to do all that kind of work, which is good. That was a niche. And then we also used to wire all the illuminated bus shelters that had the signs in them that people would wait for the bus. We'd put them up, take them down, move them around. They have a road project going on, or you got to take it out. We're going to relocate it to the next corner. And in doing that, we used to have to run conduit up on the utility poles. So eventually we bought a bucket truck to make that a little bit easier. And then it was kind of, what else can we do with a bucket truck? So we could do site lighting. And site lighting evolved into street lighting, and everything kind of just progressed. So we were doing a lot of gas station work in the mid 1990s, and got to around 1997, 98, and one of the companies we were working for said, another 2 years, the mandates that caused all this gas station work will be fulfilled. All of it's going away. And I was like, oh, what are we going to do? He said, well, we got something new up our sleeve. Maybe you're interested in getting involved. Well, what is it? It's building cell phone towers. Yeah, that's cool. But we started doing all the wiring for cell phone towers. And then I soon realized that we were subcontracting out some of the best work, which was the pole line construction and the underground high voltage distribution, because all these cell towers are on the top of mountains. And the utility says, we stop at the street. You got your way all the way up the mountain. So at the time, we had gone union, and I had some good guys that I brought in. And they said to me, why are we giving away the lion's share of the work? There's good work to be had here. Said, well, you know how to do this work? No, but union's got classes. We'll take classes. I said, you take the classes, you get certified, and I'll buy the equipment. And they kept their end, and I kept my end. And the next thing you knew, you know what? We were making more money doing, pole line construction and underground distribution than we were wiring cell phone towers. So we moved into our next niche market, and it's always been that way. You look for the emerging markets and you try to move into them. Look, it comes down to this. If you do the same thing everybody else does, only thing you've really got to compete against is price. It's a race to the bottom. Okay, so whoever drops their pants lowest gets that job. And as long as they did a halfway decent job, they're going to get repeat business because they're cheaper than the next guy. When you're in a niche market, well, that means there's less contractors can do that work, and now you can compete on a different playing field. Now that playing field comes down to, we need somebody who knows what they're doing here. Okay. And then, now price becomes, it's always a concern, but you don't have as many people that are going to come in and knock you off because they can do what you do. So that's why I always say, there was an old timer who once told me the riches are in the niches. And I always remembered that.
It's good stuff. And I think the other thing about that it reminds me of is when you're a true specialist and expert and it becomes well known. And I think that happens in fairly short order. I want to be careful with what short really means. I mean, maybe it's a year, maybe it's 3, but you then are in a position where you can charge what you need to charge to do the excellent work, because at the end of the day, personally, I believe everything we sell, let alone everything that we buy, it's always going to come down to the delivery. What's the outcome, and are people really going to do the right things to get you there without cutting any corners? I mean, we see all kinds of stuff flying around. I saw something on LinkedIn today about $9 bottles of water that you get in your hotel room, and my first thought was, well, go to the store nearby on day one and get your water there. I don't know. It's crazy, but people will pay what needs to be paid when they absolutely know they're going to get what they need and want, right? Most of the time.
Well, I got a story about that. Now I'm
All
gonna
right.
probably really parlays into what you're talking about. So I had a partner. Obviously, they were my company, D&M Electrical, and I had a partner named Mike, and we had a little bit of different philosophy on things. He liked to do residential work. I despised residential work. And, you get these scenarios where, oh, I got this great job. We're going to go put 6 hi-hats in this lady's kitchen this afternoon. It'll be a home run. We'll get in there, knock it out, $800, and it'll be a good deal. Okay, so you get over to the lady's house, and it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Eat an early lunch, get in there. All right, let's go shut off the power. We'll start cutting in the switch, and then we'll go over here. And you go down to the fuse box, and lo and behold, the circuit breaker box is burning up. Oh man, you got to show her. This is bad. Mrs. Jones, come down. Come over here. Look. You see, this is all black. This is bad. This is going to set your house on fire. This is really bad. You really got to do this. Well, okay. All right. I mean, you can give me a price to do that later. No, Mrs. Jones, your house is going to burn we can't even hook anything else up over here. This is a liability. Oh, let me call my husband. Phone. No cell phones back then. Yeah, and he said it's really bad. It's right. Yeah, well, that's what I said. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay, no, I feel the same way. Okay, all right, I'll tell him. The phone. She goes, okay, so I talked it over with my husband. Hopefully when we get our income tax refund, we'll have enough money to change that circuit breaker box. But today we want to do the hi-hats in the kitchen. Okay. Pack up the truck. We're leaving. Where are you going? Lady, your house is going to burn down. This is a liability. I'm going to send you a letter just telling you your house is going to burn down, and all you care about is new lights in your kitchen. Okay. The moral of the story, people will pay for what they want. They will not pay for what they need. And I can't deal with that animal. Never could. Just not. I don't possess the ability to deal with the animal known as the homeowner. Just can't do it.
Yeah.
Because most of them, again, fall into that trap of they'll pay for what they want, but they won't pay for what they need.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a conundrum because you know the value's there, but they just can't see it. It's a mentality thing almost.
Yeah.
I don't know what it really is. So
Yep.
over all these years where you've been doing this work, you work with teams, you work with vendors and contractors, all these different people, the customers, have you been exposed to and had to use maintenance management systems, computerized maintenance management software of any kind? No names, but just yes or no. Have you had to do
We use
that?
lots of different software because we have lots of different divisions in our company, and there's different types of software that we'll use. And again, I don't know specifically what so much is meant by maintenance stuff, but I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, look, we have software that we use in our repair shop because we maintain our trucks. So that's one type of, maintenance. We also have, certain divisions that do certain scopes that would be considered service or service like, where we, create work orders and dispatch off of. So that's certainly, similar to a maintenance type scenario. We don't get really involved in a lot of, PM type stuff. So we're really not involved in that kind of stuff there. Most of that stuff gets subcontracted out to companies that are a little more specialized in that stuff because we're working on, high voltage type situations. So there's companies that specialize in testing and they'll do the preventative maintenance. We don't really get too involved in that. So, but yeah, I mean, we certainly have experience in lots of different types of management software for the various aspects and divisions of our company.
The reason I asked that question was because I know just a very, very small bit of information in how you've leveraged technology to kind of work the way that you work. And it's one of the things I talk about a lot. So in computerized maintenance management software, when people are out there, some organization is going to get a piece of software, a lot of times they don't know their own process. But in your case, there is a process that you follow, that you stick to, and you had to develop some technology that worked the way you work. So I think that was why I wanted to kind of get into that area. But would you agree then? So the real question behind all that crap is it more about the people and the process than any system or technology you could ever have?
No, it's both. Because you can come up with the greatest system in the world, but if you don't create a culture where they buy into using it, it's useless. So it's a little of both, and it stems outside of both. Look, systems require three sides, right? You've got to develop the system, you've got to implement the system, but then you've actually got to make sure you use the system. Interesting. I would talk about software, and I talk about it from the standpoint of project management software on the construction side. And a lot of people will use project management / accounting software. There's a bundled suite. And I'll ask them a question like, how, you could easily get that job costing data from your system. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, we don't use that part. We only use this part. But how do you input that stuff? Oh, we just put a generic code in there. They basically force it by giving it bad data, right? So let's just say, what's your every job number is 9999 and every cost code is 9999. So all they end up really doing is creating, nothing. And I'm being that's probably a little drastic, but, look, every job we do, I can identify every cost from every job by using 3 different codes. Job number is a 4-digit code, cost code's a 4-digit code, and a cost type is a single-digit code, 1 to 5. By using those 3 things, I can tell you almost everything about that particular cost to that job. So you keep it simple. That's number one. Software can be as complex as you want it to be, and it can be as simple. And what you need to do is you got to figure out that sweet spot between not burdening my people with tons of paperwork, no, not paperwork, but data entry, as opposed to just getting that raw information that I need to be able to put in there, that we can take that data and use that data so that we can come back and actually do an autopsy on a bad job or dissect a good job and find out, did we make money on this part more than we made money on that part? And then you got to use it to what I call keeping score. You got to figure out, okay, here's where we made money, here's where we lost money. Now you adjust your estimating on the next job accordingly. So you actually know, how much can I do this for? But how much is it worth? And I always tell people that's the difference between estimating and bidding.
Yeah, there's another thing about your philosophy when it comes to, I think of it as like job costing. So
Yep.
You've got a job site, you've got a job to do, call it a work order, call it a project.
Yep.
I don't care about that.
Right.
Take all that out. But
Yep.
when it comes to what does it cost us, your organization, to do the work that we're known for, right? Like we're going to go out there and we're going to kill it. No two ways about it. We're not leaving that in jeopardy. We're going to make sure we do that. But you tend to think in terms of man hours, right?
Absolutely.
Could you tell me a little bit more about that? The reason I'm interested in it is because way back, like in the 90s, I was part of a building maintenance company. Mm-hmm. And when we built that company, we thought of things based on it was a very distinct process, and man hours and production rates were the absolute most critical piece of information I could have to bid a job or to actually keep a client absolutely satisfied.
Absolutely. It's critical. I mean, look, that's the basis of all estimating. When you get down to it, when you dissect job costs, what are your costs to build a job? Number one is usually the most expensive part is labor, or for us it is, right? So that's huge cost there. So number one, you're going to cost that in man hours. It's going to cost me 1,000 man hours to build this job. So if you have your average labor rate times that, that's one component of the job. Then, okay, I got to buy material for the job. Well, that's another component for the job. Well, I've got miscellaneous costs like permits and things like that. Okay, that's another cost. And then finally you get down to, okay, well, listen, I can't do everything myself. I need somebody to build, I need a left-handed widget constructed. So I got to subcontract that out. There's your subcontract cost. But if you take those 5 components and look at it, well, I left one out. When I say 5 components, there's also equipment, right? Well, I can't get up to the top over there without a scissor lift. Okay, I need equipment. So if I don't own, even if I do own it, if I own it, I want to keep track of those hours. Similar to the way I keep track of man hours, I want to keep track of my equipment hours. Why? Well, I want to look at my utilization rate. Is that piece of equipment sitting in the yard getting rusty, or am I using it? Maybe I don't use it as often as I think I do, but you know what? Maybe when I use it, I make a lot of money with it. So it's paid off. Well, I guess it's worth keeping. Versus, well, maybe it's easier if I just rent it when I need it. Got to look at that. So, these are the things that we can do when we track data. Very important concepts here.
Yeah, and it sounds like in those examples that you're giving where you're really plugged into the business and every facet of the business. It's kind of there's one of my business partners, former business partner, whatever, his buddy. Mm-hmm. We talk about the CEO being the chief everything officer, and I mean it's a hell of a lot. But if you're really into it, then some of that, although it's really hard, like you're up for it. Like you're up for it every day. You're looking at a spreadsheet that you've created yourself over the years that has all this different meaning, and you can figure out on a minute by minute basis the health of your business and all this kind of stuff. And that's why I'm always talking about CMMS it's a valuable tool to track a lot of what you were talking about. You're probably maintaining this equipment or leveraging contractors and vendors that maintain the equipment. It might be part of an MLA. Who knows? But I want to switch gears now yet again, and I wanted to talk about, we talked about it earlier, but how did you get into racing?
So basically we go back to that, that 68 Cougar my buddy owned. And, look, what do we do with cars? We want to make them faster. So like I said, that evolves into street racing, which really isn't, cool. And then we got grown up a little more and we said, let's go to the racetrack and got into drag racing. Yeah. Drag racing's cool. I did that for years, and then I actually probably around 2007 I bought this SRT8 Jeep. And 2 things happened when I bought that. Number one, it came with a free day at Skip Barber's racing school, and I got to drive the car on track at Watkins Glen. They brought a whole bunch of cars that we drove out there, so that was wickedly cool. And prior to that, I had took my car drag racing once, which I hadn't done in many years, but just was a whim out of nowhere. There was a bunch of Jeeps I saw driving down the Jersey Turnpike, and they were all SRT8 Jeeps like mine, and they're waving, and I'm like, one of them rolls the window down. I go, where are you guys going? And they're like, we're going to Englishtown for the Jeep Jamboree today. Aren't you guys coming? I'm like, no, but you know what? I think I'm going to go. I was heading that direction. Had to look at a job somewhere in Jersey, and I'm like, I'm a half hour away. Drove in there and rented a helmet, took the car out, did a couple of passes, drove home, and I'm like, yeah, I got to get back into drag racing. And then, like I said, I drove a race car on Watkins Glen at that Skip Barber event, and it was all over. It was like, oh, no, the hell with drag racing, man. I got to get out there road course racing. And, drag racing's, the faster you went, the quicker the ride's over. Whereas, you get out on a road course and it was like, wait, we get 30 minutes out on track and then we're going to go out again like 2 hours later and get another 30 minutes. That was like, whoa, wait a second. This is way more value. Also, way more expendables because you eat up tires pretty quick. But, I evolved from taking my Jeep out on Pocono Raceway with an instructor who said, are you kidding me? We're going out on a track with a Jeep? And then, this thing is awesome. He loved it. And we were like passing Vipers and stuff. And, I was getting into it. Before you know it, you know what? I can't be doing this with my daily driver. So I bought a Corvette that was, to me, had everything done that I needed to go do track days. And it did until I started. Now we're going to go wheel-to-wheel racing. And I ended up putting a roll cage in the car, build it legal for racing. And, decided to start racing it. It's an amateur series, raced with a group called NASA. And I did that for about 10 years until good friend of mine, young guy that I met. He owned a race shop, and he started taking care of cars for me. And he says, I'm not racing with you guys next season. I says, well, what do you mean? Why not? What do you mean? Why are you not racing with us? He says, no. I'm gonna race Trans Am next year. I'm like, Trans Am? That's a pro series. Really? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, you think you're ready? He goes, yeah, I think I'm ready. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna do it. And he got me interested. And I'm like, I don't know. How would I? I don't know. How would I shape up here in a pro series? I was used to being, always top three. It was when I was club racing. So now you go, well, am I that good? I don't know. Can I hang? So I rented a car with one of the top teams and went to a track that I knew well, where it all started. I went to Watkins Glen, and I did my first pro race there. And I finished 16th out of 30 cars. I go, well, dead smack in the middle. I'm not the best. I'm not the worst. Hell with it. Sold my Corvette, bought a Trans Am car, TA2 Camaro, and I've been racing in that series for the last 5 years.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
I love cars. And I knew that you had a background in racing, so I had to make sure I asked about that, because that's, I mean, cars are awesome. I've been on track once,
Nice.
about 5-6 years ago. I got a picture on the wall where I was on track. And
what track was that? What track were you at?
We're at AAA Speedway.
Okay.
It's Inland Empire out here in Southern California, and I was really lucky because there was a group that sponsored me. I got lucky. Right. I had a full track day with a coach, including double ride along with him, ride along in my ride. And the guy that sponsored me had the track record in his Corvette for the class that he was in. And it was pretty incredible. It was a great experience. And it gave me a whole new level of respect for what happens on track, the rules, the safety. And then, like, when I make it about what I do with the podcast, and I think about maintenance management, because you can throw the computer and the system out. It's the maintenance management process. Like, what has to be done to these cars? What has to be monitored on these cars? What happens after you've been on track? Because I learned that lesson as well. It was real cool going to the dealership with my C7 going, I think we're going to need new discs all the way around. That hurt. It's just a blast. I just think cars are a great representation of so many different things in life, if you want to spin it that way. So now I want to switch to the trades, the skilled trades.
Okay.
Everybody talks about the skilled trades gap and all this kind of stuff, and we got a lot of different opinions on how that has happened and how we're going to fix it. So bring back the trades. That's something that's near and dear to your heart.
On the hood of my car, hood of my race car, I do a reverse sponsorship. They don't sponsor me, I sponsor them. And I learned about them a few years ago, spoke to Steve Turner, who was the founder, and I said, listen, you know what? I'm all on board with this mission, and we're gonna slap that logo on the hood of our race car. We're going to use it to raise money and awareness, and we're going to get kids back into the trades.
I love it. And what do you see as the best way to do that? Like right now and moving forward, where does it start? How does it happen?
So one of the great things that Bring Back the Trades is doing are skilled trades exhibitions. And basically what that is, look, all companies are experiencing shortfalls in employment and shortfalls in talent, for kids looking to get a trade. Because here's the problem. Today, teachers say, you must go to college, you must go to college, you must go to college. Unless they say, you're probably too dumb to go to college. So you should maybe think about being a plumber or a carpenter or an electrician, which is, again, they're probably not as nice. If a kid says, I want to be a diesel mechanic, they say, you want to be a grease monkey? That's the attitude that the education kind of takes in most settings. And don't get me wrong, there are some school districts that get it right. There's some school districts that still have shop classes and some sort of trades programs. But for the most part, it is an uphill battle trying to convince the powers that be within the educational community that the trades are a legitimate career choice. And they're more than just a legitimate career choice. I always say that they're probably the greatest path towards entrepreneurialism a kid has today, because, you go and work in the trades 7 years from now, you're a master, you get a license, you got options. You can go get in a truck, work by yourself as much as you want, as little as you want. You could hire a guy, you could hire two guys, you can scale that business. Obviously it takes a little money, but the fact of the matter is you can make a lot of money in the skilled trades. And there's also room for advancement, even if you don't open your own business. Most of some of I would say, going back 30 years ago, there was a progression. You start as an apprentice or a helper, depending if you're in a union or a non-union environment. You become a journeyman or a mechanic, depending on what they call you. And then you either became a foreman, maybe you became a general foreman. You could progress, superintendent. Maybe you became an estimator. You went inside the office. You had a good knack for what you did. And the guy said, he's getting a little older now. Let's bring him inside here. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Estimators became project managers. Project managers sometimes became project executives. Sometimes project executives became president, CEO of the company. They were, not a company they owned, but they worked for a company who said, hey, this guy's been here, 20 years. He knows the business. Let's put him in a position of authority here. So there's a lot of people whose careers, just came right up that ladder. And unfortunately today, what happens is, because we push the perceived dumb kids, and don't get me wrong, I don't believe that there's really that many dumb kids. There's kids that aren't interested in what the teacher is teaching. They're just interested in other things. And when you find what it is they're interested in, they apply themselves, and they apply themselves very well. So if you can get these kids, and going back to what Bring Back the Trades does, which is the skilled trades exhibition, right? So we get these kids maybe in middle school who aren't really interested in the academic side of school, right? But they have an interest. You get them to go to these exhibitions, and they actually have hands-on, where they go over and go, well, here's what the electricians do. And they can wire a switch and wire an outlet and learn what an electrician is. They can bend pipe. The plumbing display is going to have a guy there who's going to let them cut some pipe with a pipe cutter and learn how they flux things, put it together. And, all right, he's going to sweat it for him, but he's going to show them how that works. And same thing, we have guys that come in with big excavators in the parking lot and let kids jump over there and show them how to operate that machine. And it goes over and beyond just the construction end of it. If you look at it, there's so many skilled trades out there in terms of, manufacturing, right? We need machinists. We need people that can build things in this country. One good thing is that we really are bringing manufacturing jobs back to this country, as opposed to what was happening. If you look at what we were doing in 2015 and compare it today, it's an exponential growth. So we need people to fill those jobs. They're skilled positions. You don't just walk into them. It's going to take time, right? You could go to trade school, or you could learn on the job. There's lots of pathways to get you into the trades. I always encourage kids, first and foremost, once you've figured out what it is you want to do, after you've explored all those different avenues, look into apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are, number one, the best way to get into the trades, because you're getting paid to learn. Your employer is paying for your schooling. You got a little dedication to do. You're going to have to go at night, a couple nights a week, and you're going to get some good, solid foundation in terms of education. And then 5 days a week, you're going to go to work, and you're going to work with the tools. So you're getting that practical experience. You're getting that textbook experience. Our electricians graduate with an associate's degree. Actually, they take some college courses in there and graduate with an associate's degree. But long story short, apprenticeship programs, you're getting paid to learn, not costing you anything. You don't need anything else other than to get into that program. Now, look, will everybody make it into an apprentice program? No, they're kind of competitively, they're competitive programs. You're going to take a test, and you're going to have an interview, and not everybody's going to get in. Well, it doesn't shut the door on you, right? You can go to trade school. That's one way you can get in, or on the job training. There's plenty of companies that will hire you, and hey, you get in the door that way. So lots of avenues, but the fact of the matter is there's never been a better time to get into the skilled trades than now.
Yeah, and it's an absolute necessity. I say it all the time that if you don't have skilled tradespeople, if you don't have those things, well, that excavator isn't going to be doing any work.
Right. Exactly.
And the Mrs. Jones electrical panel isn't going to get fixed, or it's going to get fixed by somebody that doesn't know what they're doing.
Right.
And I
Exactly.
think you mentioned at the junior high or middle school level, for me, what I've seen is so few schools, high schools in particular, don't have shop classes anymore.
Right.
And when I came up, and obviously when you came up and a lot of other people, that was not only just a thing, but it wasn't looked down upon at all because people got it. So I think sometimes technology and all these advancements and changes in society and whatever else we could spin out on just dumbed it down somehow, where people were missing the reality, because maintenance makes the world go round.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
absolutely.
A fact. So
you have to maintain your infrastructure.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Everything.
Yep.
So a couple things and I'll let you go. So on bad metrics versus good metrics.
Yeah.
I think this is something where I wanted to get your insights on,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of examples of KPIs, key performance indicators, that don't really matter, versus a couple of KPIs that make all the difference.
Yeah, I look at some metrics that I've never heard anybody else looking at, and I'll turn around and there's one metric I like to look at within my own company, and I'll look at it and I'll say, sales in dollars divided by man hours, showing you the efficiency of your company, right? How many people did it take to do this much in sales? And you look at a company, well, okay, yeah, we had 30,000 man hours, and we did, $5 million. Well, if I got a company that did $6 million with 27,000 man hours, well, hell, they're more efficient. It means they're making. Now, look, how much your cost per man hour is obviously a factor, but I just look at that as an overall efficiency metric that I like to look at. How is your labor dollars bringing in your sales? So that's a metric I like to look at. And a lot of people look at me and say, I never even heard of that before. Well, you don't have to. And that's a metric I like to look at. Helps me, look at my business. Metrics that don't matter. Look, here's the metric that matters. Net profit. That's the biggest KPI in the world. Net profit. Because at the end of the day, I don't care about all your other fancy, metrics you came up with. None of those mean anything if you don't have a substantial net profit at the end of the year. We're not in business to break even. We're not in business to lose money. We're in business to make money. And it's a matter of how much you make. And now, look, that being said, that is the ultimate metric. But we also have to be a little more, we can't be so short-sighted that that's the only thing we look at, right? So, there's a lot of metrics that you can't measure with statistics, right? Let's look at a metric that's really important, right? Look at the key personnel in your company, look at their age, and say to yourself, okay, what happens if Joe comes in tomorrow and says, I've got cancer, right? How do you fill that slot? Do you have a backup for Joe? Does Joe's helper, is he able to slot into that place? That's a huge, huge metric. Because if you don't have redundancy, if there's no depth there, Well, that's like having a football team with the best quarterback in the world, no backup. Doesn't do you much good, right?
Right.
So
Right.
you got to look at those. Those are really important metrics that people overlook. We got the best of this and the best. How many of them you got? What do you mean? How many of them I got? You got 2 or 3 of them? What? 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 Well, think about it. You better think about it. It's an important metric.
Yeah.
People, stuff happens,
That's
right?
right.
I mean,
That's
listen,
right.
I've had guys come in and say, "Hey, we're losing a foreman. Why? Kevin's wife's wanting him to move to Florida. She wants out of here. He's leaving right after Christmas." Yep, absolutely. And
Yeah.
take one of your key personnel right off the table. So, we see that. We look at it. We're always looking to develop depth. And we're guilty too. We're guilty that we don't have that depth at every position because here's the problem, right? Redundancy is great. But now, what does it cost you to have redundancy? If you got let's face it, if you had 2 Brett Favres, well, it's kind of expensive to pay 2 Brett Favres, right? And what's going to happen too? They're going to fight with each other because one of them wants to be the starting quarterback. Nobody wants to be a backup.
Right.
So you got to look at that and say to yourself, how do I do this? Or, how do I make that work? It's a huge, huge performance metric. What do you
Indeed.
got there as redundancy?
Well, that's and we've all seen it, we've all experienced it, and you're gonna experience it. There's gonna be situations that come up that if you
Yeah,
don't have a contingency plan for it, you're gonna be pretty damn jammed up. I
that's
mean, it could
right.
be catastrophic.
That's right. There's lots of levels of succession planning within a business, and some of that succession planning doesn't revolve around you all the time. Listen, a lot of people turn around succession planning. They think that's what happens when they drop dead. Well, that's important too. But succession planning also has to look into how am I grooming the next generation of my company? Huge.
That and that relates right back to what we were talking about with skilled trades,
Yeah.
bringing back the trades
Right.
and cultivating that. We've got a responsibility. That's what some of
Yeah.
this is all about.
Yeah. Here's another real problem, and this plays into 2 of the things I just talked about. Right. So as we push every kid to go to college, and we get some of those brighter kids that might have wanted to work with their hands, but we're told that's beneath you because you can go to college, you have the ability to go to college. Well, we tend to now start bringing in people that are less educated and maybe English is not their first language. So now they could be great tradesmen and great craftsmen, but as they get older, are we going to be able to transition them into a supervisory role when they might not actually know how to use capital letters and punctuation, right? You're not going to exactly make management out of them if they can't create a cohesive email that they could send out to a client. So while we may have some really great craftsmen, we are lacking that ability to succession plan within our companies because we're now forced to take those people from where, he's got a college degree in project management. Well, that's great. Has he ever been on a job site? Oh, he was an intern for one summer. So the kid really doesn't know the business. He
Yeah.
just knows what he read in a book. And the professor who taught him never had a real job either. So, we've got to look at how all of these things intertwine because they are intimately related and people fail to see that. And, the reality of it is, I'm in this business 37 years and I can tell you, I see that whole shift and how things have changed. And look, I'm not saying that we can't fix it. What I'm saying is we got to start fixing it. We got to start fixing it soon. And we have to, number one, stop vilifying the skilled trades. And we can't rely on educators to do that because they're not going to do it. Because the fact of the matter is, education is big, big money. We see what's going on in our colleges today, and maybe you're just waking up to it. I'm not. I've been watching this happen, and I've been kind of throwing up in my mouth a little bit every day, watching what goes on in the guise of higher education. But the fact of the matter is, we are turning out people that are unprepared for the workforce. And I'm talking about people that are supposedly going to school for professional endeavors. And they're coming out, well, they're not getting the classes they need because they're more worried about social justice. And hey, listen, we're not raising advocates here. You want to be a social advocate, that's great. You go do that on your own time. But the fact of the matter here is, if we're sending kids to school, we should be getting some sort of demonstrative education that they can use and be proficient in when they graduate. And we're not seeing it. I mean, maybe people want to kid themselves, but you know what? There are 7 million young men that are not in the workforce right now. Where are they? They're probably in mommy and daddy's basement playing video games and smoking weed. Because the fact of the matter is, well, they've got a degree in, 13th century hieroglyphics. And the fact of the matter is there's no jobs in there. And they're convinced that all they need is, I got to go back and get an MBA. I need, I just got a bachelor's degree. I can't get a job with that. 7 million. 7 million. Now I wonder why we have, shortage in the skilled trades. There, in the construction sector alone, we've got 650,000 unfilled jobs right now.
It's insane.
Right. Okay.
It's a painful thing. So
yeah.
Now I want to switch us into some fun questions.
All right.
And might be a little redundancy here, but let's first and foremost, we're going to start out with, what is your favorite music?
I'm a rock guy. I mean, I like 80s. Listen, if at 5 a.m. when I hit the gym, there's 80s rock in my earbuds.
We're talking like Poison or something like that?
There's a little of everything there. I got everything. I got some Rainbow in there. I got some Journey, some Styx. I got some Iron Maiden. I got some, you name it. A little, just run the whole gamut, all that stuff. Yeah, there's some Poison in there.
I love it.
Hair band metal.
I love it. I love it.
All
and,
of that.
Up in your neck of the woods, Kiss just did their final concert ever at Madison Square Garden. So it's all good. I love that stuff. Next one, your favorite sport or hobby, and it does not have to be one that you actually participate in. Maybe you just watch it.
My favorite sport was probably football up until the time we started all this kneeling for the anthem bullshit. And I was a Jets fan for 50 years. I had Jets season tickets for over a decade. And when they started all of this crap, I said, you know what? I said to my controller, I'll give up my PSL. Yeah, you had to buy a personal seat license for the tickets, and you paid we probably paid, oh God, probably $10,000 for those. And I said, you know what? Just stop payment. Stop payment on the tickets, and then they come like, oh yeah, your ticket. Nope, not interested. Not doing this anymore. So what's my favorite sport now? I guess racing.
All right. That's why I said it's going to be redundant, because I kind of saw that coming. And
but it was football. Listen, I love the sport. I just hate what it's become.
Yeah. You're certainly not alone. You're not alone. Yeah, we all wrestle with those types of things. So here's one, and there's no right or wrong answers here. When it comes to work-life balance, what's your perspective, philosophy? What are your thoughts on that? Just
so,
as a concept?
Look, I was once, one of the most prophetic things I ever heard was that the day is broken up perfectly in that you have 8 hours to sleep, 8 hours to work, and 8 hours to play. And that sounds great on paper. And you know what? If you think that that's an actual written rule, you're going to have a hard time living that. But if we make that a goal that we try to strive for, I think we got a good blueprint on how we create that work-life balance. Now, me, I'm willing to give up a few hours of sleep and trade it for a few extra hours of work so that I can have a little more money to play when I want to play. So that's my perspective on it. But listen, you need to have balance in your life. You have to have balance. You need to have time for your family. You need to have time for yourself to exercise, to take care of your own mental health. Because guess what? Exercise is the greatest way to take care of your own mental health. As far as I'm concerned, I start my day every day. 4:30, I get up, I head to the gym, and that workout, I got to hit that. And that does more things for me. It takes care of my heart. It takes care of my head. It lets me drive a 140-degree race car, in the summertime for 100 miles and actually get out and not drop dead of a heart attack.
Yeah.
So for me, that's hugely important. But I think that's, taking care of our bodies is huge. That balance factors in. But, if we use that 8-8-8 rule and we kind of look at it and ask ourselves, how am I breaking up my day? Says your goal right there.
Cool. Bonus question. What is your favorite car and why?
My favorite car, it's a real tough one because I've had some really great cars. Right now, I got a C8 Corvette that I own, which is, I'm loving it. It's a fantastic ride. I probably would be a little more happier in a C8 Z06. Which I'm going to get my hands on at some point, but I'm not into paying crazy money over sticker. Although I did pay, for the first time in my life, I paid over sticker for my my C8. But I sold my Porsche for a profit. So I kind of justified it by saying, well, I made extra money on that. So I'll, we'll spread the wealth around a little bit. We'll let the dealers make a little money.
Plus, the man who dies with the most toys wins, right?
I'm kidding. I don't see it that way. I'll be honest with you. No, I don't. Listen, you know what I say? I say a little too differently. People say, you got a new car. And I go, life is too short to drive a car you gotten bored of. Look, I only own 3 cars. I own a pickup truck, my C8 Corvette, and a race car. Now, I own 40 trucks, but that's a little different. Now, those trucks, those are work.
That's the business.
Those trucks work for me. I don't work for those trucks.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, you know what? I'm not a guy who's got to have 50 cars, 30 cars, even 5 cars. I got 3 cars, I mean, look, my wife's got a car. My daughter's got a car. But no, me, I got 2 cars. That's it. That's it. I'm good. And that's it. I can only drive one at a time.
That's it. And there's only so many hours in the day, and you got to do all these other things. And I want to thank you for being on with me. And I want to let everybody know, you can find Doug Winston on LinkedIn, and you can also find D&M Electrical Contracting Incorporated at www.dmelectrical.com. And Doug, this was a blast. I really appreciate you sharing the journey and all these cool insights. I really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. It was a good time. A lot of fun.
All right.
Awesome.
Cool deal.
All right.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.